Grunt.
Hey guys!
Bob.
Hey, introduce yourselves. It's been a while.
Yeah, been a long time.
Yeah.
I am Jimmy George. I am a full-time script consultant and screenwriter.
I'm Batman. I'm Jamie Nash. I am a screenwriter.
And I'm Bob Rose, and I'm apparently in a bad mood today.
He's fired.
I'm fired up, according to Jimmy and Jamie.
Wow.
But you know what?
Get ready.
I'm going to calm down because I think we're going to talk about a movie that me and Roger Ebert consider great.
It is
a
a
movie
great
I love.
I love it.
And I
too.
always get nervous when we talk about anything I love. I don't know about you guys, but talking about movies I love makes me more nervous than movies
Why? Because you are nervous for what?
There's so much bias there.
Okay.
You know what I mean? When you love something dearly, there's a lot of bias there. But we're going to talk about planes, trains, and automobiles.
Yeah, we're talking about it because it's great.
That's right.
Yeah, Jamie. Say it's great, Jamie.
Jamie, are you sure?
Okay. I haven't seen the movie. No, I haven't. It's funny because it is one that, of the John Hughes movies, there's probably 5 or 6 that I like more, but they're just, I don't know. I think the themes and stuff, when I saw this movie, I was a little younger.
Right.
You know, so give me Breakfast Club. Give me...
This would be my favorite John Hughes.
It's
John
my
Waters
favorite
movie.
John Waters movie.
No, this is my favorite John Hughes movie.
I saw this
It
for
would-
the
it would
first
be.
time 3 years ago, and
Really?
Yeah, just for
Wow.
the first time. I missed it somehow.
This is a
because-
weird collection of fans of planes, trains, and
I
automobiles.
told Jimmy you should never watch
Yeah,
it.
dude, stay away.
Stay
John
away from
Candy.
that pile of crap.
Yeah. John Candy is a monster.
Well, let's. They did remake this movie. It's called Due Date.
Yes,
You guys
they
have
did.
never-
They
it was
absolutely.
basically almost
Holy
direct
shit.
remake
Yeah.
of this. Anyway, well, we know who wrote
I
this
love
movie.
that movie. Yeah.
Huge. We're gonna do a Due Date episode. Don't worry.
We should have reviewed that one.
Yeah, back to back.
We all know who wrote this movie.
Yeah,
Solely John Hughes.
John Waters.
John Waters.
John Waters.
John Hughes. And if you watch the extras on the Blu-ray, he actually talks about how he wrote it in 3 days.
Yeah,
But
that's
that was
insane.
kind of his MO, wasn't it, Jamie?
Yeah, it was. He did a lot of movies. He wrote a lot of movies in like 3 or 4
First
days.
drafts.
First drafts. I mean, because they said this had many other drafts after
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
so
it did.
It wasn't like...
No, he said there was like 30 drafts of this movie. It was just the first.
just
was-
the
I
first,
think
yeah.
I think it was based on some kind of story. Like he was in a situation where, I don't know if it was the holidays or anything, but he just was stuck in an airport and couldn't get home.
He sat
and
next to
had-
somebody that was completely annoying on a plane, apparently.
yeah. So
Yeah.
and I think his writing in 3 days, he was almost trying to approximate like the film's time and
Right.
try to get that vibe.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I actually think it's very instructive. Like right now, it's November, the NaNoWriMo month, where people try to write a novel in a month. I actually think it's very instructive if you have the wherewithal, if you have the time, to just throw everything away, check into a hotel, go to a cabin, and write a script in like a week.
Have you done that before?
I've never gone away, but
Yeah.
I have written a script or 2 in a week.
Do you like him?
Yeah, I mean, I had to rewrite them just like John Hughes probably did a million
Right.
times. There is something to be said about just knowing you can do it.
Yeah.
And I actually think it is very instructive, and you'll learn a lot. I learned a lot from the first script I wrote in like a week. It taught me a lot about writer's block, about writer's
Yeah.
psychology, about process.
Sometimes that pressure actually brings out the creativity more than
I think so.
concentration and length ever would. So
Yeah. So
he was kind of the master of this. I think all of his movies were like written in less than a week, first draft.
The first drafts.
Like I know
yeah,
Ferris
yeah.
Bueller was like 2.5 days or something like that, and
Right.
all of his movies were just like
Wow.
So well, I mean that was his talent.
That was his
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, I mean, is there anything we can add?
Well, he
about
came from
John
an advertising background, right? He was doing ads first, and then he did National Lampoons.
He
and
wrote.
then
Well, Vacation was a story he wrote for the magazine, and then
Right.
he expanded into.
Yeah.
Yeah. it's kind of amazing, especially being he was in the age of typewriters. Because I think if I was in the age of typewriters, it would take me a year to write it.
Right.
Jamie, when this is off topic but kind of on topic, when you get a paid gig, what are the deadlines usually? Are they short? Are they long?
Just as one example, it could be anything. It
Okay.
could be anything. If the movie's more just an idea that's not greenlit, then you usually get more time. You might get 3 months or something to write something. But like I've had rewrites that they were about to make the movie, the next month. And I got a call. The contract wasn't even dry. And everybody was on the phone, like the director, all the production heads. And they were like, they gave me all these notes. And then I was brought into a rewrite. It was a rewrite gig. I was rewriting somebody else's script. And they gave me all these notes. And then they said, we have a big meeting on Monday. Do you think, and this is a Wednesday, do you think you could have some first pass at this by Monday? So, I've had that happen too. It happens.
You got through it though, right?
I got through it. I gave them a first pass by Monday, and then they had a ton more notes for the next week and stuff like that because I probably rushed a lot of the things.
Yeah, well, that's a tough task.
I hadn't even
there.
read the script on this Wednesday. By the time they were saying, "Can you have it by Monday?" So there was a lot to happen.
Well, speaking to orient the audience a little bit, speaking of rewrites and stuff, like the way we do things on this podcast is we treat the final film as though it were a finished script.
Yeah,
it's
but
important.
This movie went through a lot of rewrites, and apparently it was like a 3-hour long movie when it was done. He shot double the amount of normal film.
Okay.
On this movie, and then it was edited down to what we know.
I actually heard a quote from Steve Martin about that, where Steve Martin read the script, right? And he said, "I love the script, but what are you going to cut out?" And John Hughes looked at him like he was crazy. He was like, and Steve Martin had written scripts at that point.
Right,
He's like, you can't have a 175-page script or whatever it was that it was. By the way, there is a script online, and it is. I'll look it up now. It's really long. It's 165 pages.
Whoa!
So the one online, so that's the final shooting script was 165 pages. Wow. So there was one before that, but that was even longer. And John Hughes just looked at him like he was like, "What do you mean? I'm not going to take out anything."
Right.
And then like I think you just mentioned the first edit Steve Martin said was 4 hours, over 4 hours.
Yeah, it was
long.
something massive. It
Whoa.
Was, yeah, there's apparently most of that is lost now to time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
and then
somebody's gonna dig that up, find a random copy.
And the movie's like a crisp 90 minutes. It's like boom, it's fast.
It's really
especially for
nice.
back then.
It's
when
really
things were
tight.
a little longer.
Yeah, it's amazing to have something that was written and made to be that long, and then it ends up being like a really tight, well-made, amazing movie.
They found the movie in the editing room. Yeah,
it's the last gatekeeper to a great thing.
Absolutely.
The script is out there. I'm looking at a PDF right now. I Googled.
Yes.
So if you're interested in seeing what the original final shooting 165-page draft, it's a Google away. You can find it out there. Just Google Planes, Trains, Automobile script.
I like
PDF.
that phrase.
But
it's
still, we're gonna
away.
I just want to say, while that exists, we always treat it as though the script was what we ended up with. So
exactly,
because we're not. We all did not sit down and read the 170-page script. It's like,
please,
incidentally,
kill me.
That's what tends to happen. Like after the fact, especially Oscar movies and stuff, they conform a script to the actual screen. I don't know who does it or anything because I've never had to do
That's
anything.
so
Not that
weird.
I've ever been up for
weird to
Oscars
me.
or anything, but they conform something to it. And even to the extent where arbitration happens, I think I had a situation where I was in an arbitration situation. Like the producers went through and sort of confirmed what was shot, so that the arbitration could happen based on that instead of like my version, which was changed during shooting. So
to figure out credits,
exactly,
they make the new version.
Yeah,
they re-edited the
I don't
script.
know if that's a policy or anything. I had that happen once, and I was just like, "Who did this?" I don't know who. Because I was looking at it, but
this is my script, but it's
not
missing
to be off
things.
topic too, but like. You also got to think of all the stuff that happens during shooting where like a director will just be like, well, we're doing this now.
Absolutely.
And they make it up on the spot. That's technically writing, I guess.
It's totally writing.
Right. But like it was never written down.
Yeah.
It was never in the script.
Yeah.
Actors improving lines.
Ad-libbing.
Yeah.
And so this movie, by the way, not to jump into it too much, but it made $49 million in what year was this? 87?
Wow.
87. Yeah.
Oh, in 87.
What a
And with
good year
inflation,
for
that's pretty great.
Yeah.
Wow. It was actually on its opening weekend. It was number 3. I wonder what beat it.
I feel like this movie, though. I mean, number one, it lives on because it's a holiday movie. A holiday that doesn't have many movies.
Right.
Like I could think of maybe like 4 or 5 Thanksgiving movies, and this I feel like is the Thanksgiving movie.
Right. Even though Thanksgiving doesn't really happen on screen.
No, it doesn't. But can you think of another Thanksgiving movie as prominent as this?
Pieces of April, definitely. No.
Home for the Holidays, Dutch, Son-in-Law.
I love Dutch.
I'm probably missing a bunch, but then Dutch was John Hughes. You wrote John, It's another road trip Thanksgiving movie.
Charlie Brown's Thanksgiving.
Yeah, right. Television. So I mean, like this feels like the Thanksgiving movie. It's lived on because of that.
Just to give it a feel, in 1987, I feel like we've been in 1987.
We have
before.
With this
because if you remember, number 1 was 3 Men and a Baby.
Yes,
that was 1987.
Wasn't Predator 87?
Is that why we're here? Yes,
I
number
think
12.
That's why
Predator.
we ended up talking about it.
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles snuggles in at number 21, right behind Eddie Murphy Raw, which I saw
that
several
was theatrical?
times in the theater. Yeah, I saw it in the theater.
Oh wow!
Yeah, you didn't know that?
Eddie Murphy
I
fans.
did not know that.
So it ends up number 21, right between Eddie Murphy Raw and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs reissue.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, let's talk about log lines, guys.
So let's break it down. We did this on a previous episode, and we got a lot of really good feedback. People were like, "I love that. Let's do that more." So,
and since we do whatever the audience says, we're gonna do this.
I mean, when you have 1 or 2 fans, you might as well.
Yeah, right. The 2 people listening are gonna love this episode.
Next week we will review Super Mario Brothers. Right?
I'm down to do that. So anyway,
that's another topic.
yeah.
But I mean, without quote, I cut and pasted from a blog post that Jamie made about.
There you go. But
everybody's let him speak on his own for what?
I don't remember it. I honestly don't remember doing a blog post about log lines. But
it's a great one. Look it up. Jamie has a great Medium.
Is there a title for the blog?
I
don't think so. It's just my Medium account.
It's just says JamieNash.medium.
With your own words.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, this is really just stuff I've ripped off from other people.
Well, no, it's
in some ways.
There's
the humbleness of Jamie Nash.
I don't
really do anything. I just saw it.
I don't want to put myself out there as the inventor of any of this. I'm more the aggregator.
Yeah, no, it's
so here, but But because I authored the Medium post, I can claim to it now. It's my territory.
Yeah.
So you put it online, that means it's real.
So my recipe is always this way. And again, this is something I see a lot. And I actually probably have some nuances we'll talk about too. But a hero protagonist who really wants something, there's something in the way, an obstacle, often a villain. And if they don't achieve it, something really bad will happen. And that's the stakes. And the key things we've talked about here before is usually I like some tensity in the protagonist if I can find it. But usually I like to hint at their character arc or the thing that they need, which is a little hard in this case, but we can talk about that in a second. The goal, this is something Jimmy and I agree on, should be something that you can take a photograph of. Like you can show the finish line visually.
Like a man sitting at a table for Thanksgiving dinner.
That would be perfect.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's really, I think, the stakes usually, the more life and death they are, and by life and death, that doesn't mean life and death. Sometimes it is life and death. Sometimes it means the galaxy, like in a Marvel movie. But sometimes it can just mean
your wife thinks you're cheating on her.
Exactly. That can be life and death.
Yeah,
it's arguable that's
tangible life stuff.
I was just trying to go from the movie.
Death stuff.
It's arguable that those are the stakes of this movie. Is that there's something that we're never told that the wife obviously.
Yeah, they don't hit that on the nose really.
They don't.
I was surprised in my rewatch. I was expecting more. Because I always feel like that's the Home Alone part. It's reverse Home Alone, right?
Yeah.
The person at home is the one that is like.
Right.
Thing.
Maybe it's in the scenes cut out, which is why it feels like there's more.
They had to cut something, and then they kind of just say everything with her mournful look when she's like, he's never coming.
Yeah.
And maybe they had a past where he did something.
Right.
But it might, if they left that in, it might kind of take away the endearment of the character.
Right.
Of Neil
it
Page.
Wouldn't be as kind of family values feel.
Yeah.
The movie really feels like it's about learning to like appreciate your family. So if you talk about infidelity and all this stuff, it kind of like will take away from that and be more about marriage specifically, you know. So I'm glad it's not there.
Well, it's just like, does she not believe that he is going through everything we're seeing?
Right.
And why? And you assume it's infidelity. For some reason.
Well,
something
in my take, I have it a little like, here's my take, and it's more in the Family Man version. But so anyway, those things: hero, goal, obstacle, stakes. My theory is, if you put all those in a log line and they're all there, and you can now, it's harder, it's easier said than done to say all those things are there. Like, even me telling people that, they'll still screw it up.
Yep.
So, but if for some reason, if you can be really, you know, if you can analyze yourself in a very unbiased eye and come up with these things, your log line will be fine. Your log line will work. But then you got to leave the cool part in too. But that's, anyway, so back to my theory on him. This is the tensity part I came up with, and I struggled a little bit with this one, but I said an overworked family man, you know, because that's kind of the tension.
Yeah,
I think that
I said workaholic, but overworked is better.
The opening scene establishes the overworked part.
Yeah.
So my this is just my interpretation of that woman on the other phone. It's like, oh, another excuse again. Work's more important than me. Like, that was my interpretation.
Yeah, they showed that very well.
Yeah, it's a little vague that you could, you know, put your own piece.
The first part of this log line would probably be exactly the same with Hook.
Oh yeah.
It's like almost exactly the same.
Yeah, that's a good call.
I find a lot of male writers have this family in family films. They put this arc in a lot of their family films. I'm sure
business first family,
because, you know, I work hard, and then sometimes you know, feel guilty about, you know, am I doing enough for the family? Am I ignoring family for work or whatever?
Yeah. And plus, it's just a really relatable.
It's relatable
character.
Yeah. But that's where the tensity. So you have overwork battling with the family. You know.
How would you guys describe? Would you put? I purposely wanted to ask you guys both this.
Yeah.
Would you put Del in the log line, or do you just leave him out?
Well, he did say the villain, and he is not a villain, but he is the antagonist. He's the antagonist, though, right? I mean,
yeah, I would. I think he spices it up, but I think you could have a very simplistic.
How do you describe him, though?
This is what I came up with, because I did pre-write this. I came up with, and this isn't a great way to do him, because there's so much more to him than this. That's what's so great about him.
You can't give away anything, right?
Yeah. I called him an obnoxious salesman.
Yeah, that's exactly what I described him as.
Yeah, I would probably be right there too, right?
But honestly, the magic of this movie is that he's not just an obnoxious salesman.
When you pull apart the small reveals about his character is the magic of this movie for sure.
Right.
But so, you know, as a writer myself, I struggle with what I leave in and what I leave out of the log line, because there's so much you could tell, but you want to tell it as the most efficient way as possible. Yeah, go for it, Bob.
Instead of saying just obnoxious salesman, could you say obnoxious but resourceful salesman?
Yeah, you could.
The whole movie is about Del being completely resourceful.
Yeah. Now, would you put him, like Bob said, he's the antagonist, but if I were describing this, I would describe this, and we'll get onto the subgenre in a minute, as a buddy. So I kind of would throw him in the hero part of the log line.
Well, that's absolutely true.
It kind of defies, I guess, antagonist, protagonist, right?
You know, and I mean, if you look at the poster, it's two guys, you know, it's a buddy comedy, 2 stars.
It's the Tommy Boy poster.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's tricky. I could see it. You could say that. You could say that.
But it is Steve Martin, like, annoyed. Del spilling
he's the main character.
It feels like he's nudged out the protagonist. I usually recommend people try to nudge somebody out to the protagonist role in a log line.
Yeah.
It just makes it easier to write.
I think Neil's the protagonist. I think that's a
fair
assessment.
you just talk about Neil and not Del.
That's my gut for this, because also when you get
from an instructive standpoint,
when you get to the goal part, their goals are slightly different too.
Yeah.
And then you'd have to describe.
So
both
that gets
goals
confusing.
It does get a little.
Because really, Del is not trying to get home for Thanksgiving.
But you could smush them together since you're not giving away anything. You could smush together and say, like, they're both trying to get home for Thanksgiving. Yeah. Okay. Even though
Del
that's
isn't
not
really
true.
Right.
He says it is the whole movie.
But isn't a log line? Isn't a log line sometimes describing like the first half of the movie and what the audience would know?
Yeah.
It really describes the trailer. That's what I think.
Yes, you said it way better than I just did.
Yeah,
Scott Myers, The Blacklist, says, "Sell the story, don't tell the story."
Yeah.
In the log line. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Exactly.
Which gets tricky if it's almost a litmus test. If you write a movie that is purely about the twist, like let's say it's The Sixth Sense, and the only thing, let's say at The Sixth Sense, the only way to sell that movie was the twist, you have a problem.
Did you guys? I don't know if you.
Yeah.
Did
When
you
you're
read the
doing the
original?
log line, it might end up being really boring.
Right. I don't want to derail the log line conversation, but did you know the original idea for this movie though?
No.
Did you read that? It's in the IMDb trivia, which I'm gonna assume is true.
Okay.
But originally, John Hughes wrote it as Dell being a vampire.
Whoa.
What?
And and the ending was apparently like Dell was actually just trying to get Niels to a place where he could eventually kill him. Well, I was like, that's insane.
Well,
that's so different.
Now it makes me wonder if that's what he wrote in 3 days.
That's the that's the 175 page script.
Right.
In
But
3 days.
apparently the script was the same until the end. Like he was this annoying vampiric type of like guy that would just find people on the road and like help them out until they trusted him enough to get them alone.
See it. You add it in there, it's like it changes.
It changes the whole movie,
movie.
Yeah. Anyway, log line.
Yeah. So there's I just wanted to throw this out there. There's a great website called logline.it. Logline it.
Okay.
You just type logline.it and instead of .com and it'll take you there. And it is sort of like I'm trying to compare it. It's basically a peer review, peer feedback site
awesome.
for log lines, and there's thousands. And you just go there, and they have and it's I don't know how to pronounce his name. It's Karel Seegers, I think.
I don't know.
He has a website called The Story Department. It's very good.
Okay.
And shame on me for not knowing what country he's from. But he started it, and it's kind of like a subdivision of the story department. And you go there, and you literally just post a log line, and then like 50 people say, don't like that, or didn't work for me, or they are like, this is great, like I'd want to see this movie.
Chris Lockhart's Facebook page, The Inside Pitch, does a lot of that as well.
Oh, that's cool.
You can post there, and it's a Facebook group, and you can post.
Yeah, what I like about Logline is it feels less like one of those groups where it's just instant hate, and it's more constructive. You know, you got people who are literally just coming there to post log lines and read log lines and learn.
They don't even want to write scripts; they just want to write log.
But there's like 7,000 log lines on there, so it's really cool. It's a good site to go to. But yeah.
So how much of this log line do we have so far?
Just the very beginning, but the rest is easy.
It's very simple.
Let's get through the rest.
I'll read
half an hour to talk about the simple thing.
I'll read
people
you
like the log line.
Like it.
They like it.
I'll read you the one I cooked up. An overworked family man battles to make it home in time for Thanksgiving while being forced to deal with an obnoxious salesman as his only companion and facing all the hassles of the most traveled day of the year.
Woo! I dig it.
It's a little long. You could cut some of this.
You probably could make it a half sentence shorter, but it's good. That describes the movie to a T. So,
I described the obstacles they need to be overcame as traveling across the country using the dysfunctional transportation system.
Okay.
Because
the movie does kind of hinge on that.
Yeah, that's what it is, and that is the inciting incident too. So like, I threw the inciting incident in the log line. I said when their flight is diverted to the wrong city, a workaholic marketer and an obnoxious salesman must travel across the country using the dysfunctional transportation system to get home for Thanksgiving dinner with their family.
It is true that it's not just Dell in the way. He's not the only obstacle. It's it is things failing. Yeah.
It's the various forms of transportation.
The planes, the rental cars, and the train.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
Right.
And I think that's what's key. Again, you have to have what's cool about it. So, listing things out like that is sometimes really important.
Absolutely.
Because you have to kind of pitch what's special about it.
You kind of have to have the sizzle in there.
Yeah, it's not just two guys riding in the car annoying each other. It's more than that. There's other things that they try and attempt, and it's in the title. It has a great title too.
Oh my god,
that's a big help.
I know. I was tempted in the log line to just put they have to use planes,
trains, and automobiles
that don't work,
right.
in order to.
Right. No. Yeah.
But yeah, no, both of those work.
I think both of those were good log lines. I could see that on the back of the VHS.
Yeah.
The thing about the log line though, I wanted to ask about, what do you think? We talk about those Blake Snyder genres, and Blake Snyder genres, just to redefine them, they're more like patterns. They're more like about plot. They're not horror. They're not comedy. They're these other things that describes types of stories that are told. Like,
I almost feel like they inform premise delivery, like how to go about telling this type of story.
They help you brainstorm, I think.
Yeah.
I think they're like one notch beyond structure.
Yeah.
They probably don't, for my money, they probably don't go deep enough. I almost wish there was a book about each one of them.
I agree.
That you could even really analyze, like, this is what monsters in the house did.
So
there you go, save the cat people. So I'd like I'd like to see that. But anyway, talking about this one, and Bob, I know you don't know these as well. So
I'm listening. I'm just
there's a bunch of them.
It's great. They're great.
There's a bunch of them which this one could be. So I'll give you 3 that I thought this could be. Okay.
I'll tell you which one it is when we're done.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a buddy love story, and buddy love are all romantic comedies and buddy movies, generally speaking.
Okay.
That's buddy love. And they usually have, I'm doing a horrible job because I'm trying to do this from memory. They usually have 2 characters that kind of learn something from each other. They're both, it's like one man or woman split in half as far as their personality.
They each have something they need to give to the other.
That's
the other
right.
needed it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So that's usually the typical thing. There's probably a few other things, but I can't remember what they are off the top of my head.
That's pretty much the gist of it. Yeah.
So that's number one. The other one that I actually sometimes think this movie reminds me of is Monster in the House.
Really?
Yeah, because usually that you're trapped. There's a monster. You can't get away. There's usually a sin that comes about. I don't know what the sin is in this case with him, but there's a lot of things, like when he doesn't go with his friend or his
he should have waited. He should have waited.
He should have waited.
Yeah, exactly.
So the sin brings about the trouble.
Yeah.
So in some ways, like I'll give you another example. A movie I think is a Monster in the House is What About Bob?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
This movie has some similarities with What About Bob?
A movie that ruined my life for a few years. Everybody.
Oh, yeah.
What about Bob? Your name,
Oh,
right, man?
you're Bob.
Yeah.
So
I love
sorry,
that movie.
Bob.
It's just everyone said it to me constantly.
I think this dips its toe into a Monster in the House, but I personally wouldn't call it a monster.
You know what, Jamie? It has small monster in the houses in it. When he's stuck on a plane. Yeah. When he's stuck on the bus. I mean, he's like literally crawling.
He's in different haunted houses
every time, and Dell's the monster.
Dell's the monster chasing him.
Right.
What's interesting about What About Bob in comparison to this is What About Bob needs to make Richard Dreyfuss the monster at the end. He really becomes a horrible person. This movie sort of needs to do the opposite to make it work.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the other
That's
one,
a great example, Jamie.
Yeah,
God, that's so good.
The other one I think is and this is the third one, and probably the one I lean towards, is a Golden Fleece.
Yeah.
So Golden Fleece, and I will admit, I looked it up, and Blake Snyder actually has Planes, Trains, and Automobiles in his book, and he labeled it as a Golden Fleece.
Yeah.
So you're agreeing with Blake Snyder.
I am.
Okay.
In this case,
so am I.
In this case,
okay.
So
I need to hear what it is. Yeah.
A Golden Fleece generally is all road trip movies, but here's where it might be interesting to you, Bob. Not only is it road trip movies, but it's also quests and it's also sports movies. He lumps them all together.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah,
and he says the 3 requirements are a prize, a road, and a team. And in that case, so like Rocky, the road is the fights. It's he's got to do a certain amount of things,
like
or training
or something
and
like
Major League. It's the season.
It's the road.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's
time is essentially.
And there's a prize. So he lumps them all together. Now the weird thing is, like, Star Wars is a Golden Fleece in some ways too, because they're trying to destroy the Death Star, or if there's some quest or something.
Yeah.
Star Wars is a weirdly structured movie in that it goes in different directions.
Right.
Save the princesses, comes in the middle, and then destroy the Death Star. Anyway, it kind of jumps around.
Destroy the Death Star doesn't come in though right at the beginning, where I feel like these have the goal set,
but
right? These would have
the
goal.
Star Wars has get the droids to Alderaan, and that's the road technically. But then it takes a left turn, then it takes another left turn.
But I'm saying it changes midway. Whereas I feel like all the you listed, it's like obvious what we're
very
going
deliberate.
I'm trying to think
Tommy Boy, what they're doing, or like any Fairley Brothers road trip comedy, they all have that get here.
Yeah. And what's another Quest movie though? Like Star Wars comes to mind, but
Lord of the Rings?
getting the treasure. It's treasure movies, treasure stories. You know, getting the treasure,
heist movies, things like that.
Yeah,
Dark Crystal. You just got to get a piece of that crystal.
Yeah.
Back in the thing. Yeah.
So
it's just,
Ocean's 11 would be
Ocean's 11, definitely.
A Golden Fleece.
Yeah.
Golden Heist.
Golden Heist.
The Golden Heist.
So in this movie, the road's literally the road.
It's literally the road,
and it's getting Neil home for Thanksgiving.
That's right.
The prize is
that's the prize. He sees his family. Right.
So that's why this is almost a quintessential. Golden Place.
I agree.
But the buddy elements definitely come into play.
Yeah, the buddy love one doesn't sound like it's not.
They call it in the Save the Cat. So if you haven't read this book, it's called Save the Cat Goes to the Movies. And it breaks down all of these subgenres within like the Save the Cat model. And it just does a great job. It's a teaching. They go through about like 10 different movies that
this is one of them.
This is one of them.
Really?
So the Golden Fleece. There's like 10 different movie examples that are Golden Fleece, and they're all different. Like you said, there's a sports one, there's a road trip one, there's a treasure one, and so they kind of break down how to tell this type of story using the standard Save the Cat structure. And they call it a buddy fleece in this movie.
That's right.
They don't call it a golden fleece. They call it the buddy fleece. So it's kind of like an amalgam of the buddy comedy.
He kind of has subgenres that he doesn't go into too much. He just kind of labels.
He just kind of labels it, and you're like, you get it, right? Yeah. But it works.
I mean, I would obviously agree with you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems obvious, but I don't know how helpful that stuff
Putting
is.
it in a box. I don't know.
I mean?
I think there's massive value
from a writing
in
standpoint.
saying,
I can see how it's helpful, but like
we don't want to do what somebody else has done, but I think there's a huge value in having a story and saying like, okay, what else has been done that's just like this? How did they successfully tell this story in order to say, okay, I'm going to do it a little differently, but it's nice to know.
So what I used to do, I don't do this as much anymore. I found this, so much like you, I didn't find this as useful as a writing tool. And that's why I want these books, because I think it could be more useful if they really dug into what you see over
the nuts and bolts.
I haven't read Goes to the Movies. I've read Save the Cat. Right. Just so you guys know.
Right now it's at a really high level. But I think if they really dug in, they might be able to make it more interesting. However, here's how I've used it in the past. If I'm coming up with a movie, I might say, what kind of, it's a buddy love. And then I'll start thinking of all the other buddy loves. So I might be like, oh, you know what? I'm writing Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Maybe I should watch Rocky, and see what Rocky does.
Yep.
So I basically used it to give my list to steal from. So I'd start making a list to steal. But I try to...
but...
I prefer to steal...
I
prefer to steal from movies that are completely different genres when I'm brainstorming.
Right.
Like wouldn't want to make Due Date and steal from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Which is what they did.
I'd rather have Due Date and steal from Shakespeare or something. That's in my theory.
No, I technically do that stuff myself.
We all do.
I think we all do.
Yeah, inspiration.
Yeah. Like what's Star Wars if it's a psychological thriller? I don't know what the hell it is, but I prefer doing it.
It puts a name to a lot. All these books, we've said this a million times. A lot of people talk down on screenwriting books, and I just look at it like you've got this type of nail that works best with this type of wood. You got this type of screw, and all these books, they just if you're having trouble, a lot of times you'll find something that's just like this one little note, and it fixes the problem that you had based on learning from a previous movie.
But you agree also that it's Golden Fleece?
Golden Fleece, 100%, because it just
how could you not?
It's it holds all of those things, and there's a lesson. There's a lesson learned, and that's like an important part of the Golden Fleece. Let me ask you guys this:
is this one of the few
times learned
where we're talking about a movie that is like used in one of these books?
I don't know.
Of all the movies we talked about so far,
what'd you say?
Because this
I
movie,
missed what you just said.
I'm saying, is this one of the first times we're talking about a movie that's used
actually
in these conversations often? Because I feel like this movie comes up in conversations about writing often when I'm talking to people. And
I'd have to think of the classic books or classic movies that we've gone over, and the only one that comes to the top of my head is like Fargo, I think, was in the book.
Fargo is in the book. Yeah.
Poltergeist wasn't.
Poltergeist isn't.
Fargo was in
no,
the book.
you're right.
I'm saying like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is kind of a classic story.
Yeah, from an instructive standpoint.
From an instructive,
right. A lot of people like to learn from this movie.
Yeah, like it's a teaching movie.
Though I'd also say, when Blake wrote this book, there's a certain timeliness to it. Like if you wrote it today, maybe it wouldn't be Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Maybe it'd be Due Date. I don't know.
But no one likes
I got
Due
you.
Date.
He was having his finger on the pulse of what he thought people would be interested in.
But no one likes Due Date.
I know. I'm just kidding with Due Date.
People love this movie.
It might be. It might be something.
But I'm just glad.
You're right. It'd be Dumb and Dumber.
Jamie, I'm just glad you took the time to break down the basic ingredients, which is a road, a team, a prize.
Speaking of road, I mean that's really what this is.
It's a road movie. Yeah.
I've had trouble in the past writing road trip movies because they get really episodic. So I thought it might be useful to talk about.
To me, I don't know why I've never even attempted it, but it seems to me like it would be easier to write a road trip movie because it's like skits.
Yeah,
they go to they do something, they leave, they go to the next thing, go to the next thing. It's like Homer's Odyssey in a comedy to me.
Yeah.
There's a really, you know what I mean? Because Homer's Odyssey,
that's a good call.
Well, yeah, Homer's it's the Coen Brothers did it literally. Yeah. they made a road movie out of Homer's Odyssey.
There's this video I always show to my students, the South Park guys. Have you ever seen this?
Oh,
video?
It's great. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're sitting there talking about what they do in the writer's room. And they say, here's how we do it. And, we line things up. And if we have something that says this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, we're screwed. Yeah. But if we say this happens, therefore this happens, therefore road trips.
That's like the best writing advice I've ever gotten.
No, it's great.
Therefore this happens.
Yeah.
Road trips sometimes devolve into and then this happens, and then this happens.
Yes,
and you could almost just swap the incidents and it wouldn't make any difference to the story. And that's what gets tricky because your movie could get boring at that point.
Can I point to a good example? Mm-hmm. I think Farrelly Brothers' best road trip movie is, I would probably say Dumb and Dumber or Kingpin. Why do you want to argue that? But and I like Me, Myself, and Irene, but that's an and then movie.
Yeah, definitely.
That is the events that happen on the road in that movie are at like almost at random, like him killing the cow.
Yeah,
they just come upon a cow and he kills it. It has nothing to do with anything before or after.
But I think that's more also to do with, we were talking about this off before we started, that comedies don't need
to play those
the
rules.
Causation between scenes. You can have as many coincidences as you want. In a comedy, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
No one cares. The audience doesn't care. The audience will.
So you're saying that's one of the reasons these are hard to write?
No, I'm saying that's one of the reasons it's okay. Yeah, that you have these road trip movies because
in a comedy
and this happens and then this happens and it's okay because it's a comedy. Because generally road trip movies are comedies. I mean, you got some dramas, but
in a comedy you can have coincidences as long as they're funny.
Yeah.
It's forgiven if it's funny. That's good.
It's forgivable if it's funny.
There's a certain execution element to it.
Well, let's talk about this movie for a sec with coincidences.
Well, you want to talk about coincidences, or we're going with the road trip?
Well, the only thing I'd say, one thing that this does have going for it that allows for some coincidences is right away. What's the first scene we see in the movie? 2 days before Thanksgiving. So at least that ticking clock provides connective tissue.
Yeah.
That it's not like we can take these side trips forever. The audience realizes they have to get out and go to the
good
next
call.
thing.
Also, like, I know. Let me get weird for a second, guys. Like, I was thinking heavily about coincidences. Sorry, I can't say that word today.
It's hard. I said consequence.
Consequences. So I was thinking about that because I know Jimmy loves talking about that and about this movie.
I would call it the C word, though. That would be weird.
Right, the C word. But I think a lot of coincidence also like is acceptable when it comes to theme, where when you look at this movie, I've read weird fan theories about this movie and stuff where like Del doesn't exist and Neil's in like the seventh circle of hell. It's like there's this like the whole thing being like this play on Neil's own struggle. It doesn't matter if Del just shows up.
No, not at all.
You know what I mean? Because there's almost this thematic element to the movie where it's not reality, even though it is,
And I almost think that's a little bit where the monster in the house is.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah. Michael Myers just shows up. He just shows up. But you know what I'm saying? It's not like this. You kind of know that this is a little heightened reality without it being too much.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But coincidences in this movie.
Yeah.
He trips over the thing at the beginning. He trips over the case.
Yeah.
That's not a coincidence.
No.
But the fact that they meet up at the airport, one.
Right.
The fact that they're sitting together at the airport.
Yeah.
Two, that the fact that they're sitting next to each other on the airplane.
Yeah.
And I would say
right.
Right. And then I would say everything's pretty much explainable up until they part ways in the middle of the movie. And then the guy punches Neil out.
Yeah.
He falls on the ground, and who almost hits him with the car? That's Del.
Right, Del.
I say that is
what
the
a coincidence.
Biggest egregious coincidence of the whole movie is that moment.
And who cares, right? Who cares?
I think that's a great scene when the guy picks Neil up by his balls.
Yeah.
So, like, you know what? Like, it's not, but in any other genre, that would be like, people would throw the movie away.
Yeah, I agree with you completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, as reading amateur scripts all day, every day, the average script that's not a comedy, I run into 7 or 8
on that level
use of coincidences to move the story forward.
You mean like on the level we just said?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay.
Where the writer decides that they need something to happen, and so it happens because the writer needs it to happen, not because it's what would actually happen based on what we're watching. It's just like, oh, they just happen to walk past a room where 2 people are talking about them and this very important plot detail that they need to hear. Not because it's actually what would happen, but because the writer is like, shit, what do? I need them to find out this stuff.
Right.
And they're like, I'll just throw in this random coincidence. Mm-hmm. And then the solution is to reverse engineer the coincidence so it feels like it's what would happen. Essentially,
right.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between.
I'm really passionate about it because I know
because
I run into it all day.
Coincidences are a thing that really bother me in a lot of movies. Like, it takes me out of the movie for a while.
Yeah.
Like it.
You feel the strings.
Does that one bother you?
It does not. Just like you say, in comedy, sometimes it doesn't. I think there was also a time I saw this movie when I was younger where I didn't care as much. It's more something I developed.
So it's
when
already
I was older.
won itself over.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
You're already like, eh.
I didn't mean to cut you off, Bob. I feel like I cut you off with it.
There are a lot of movies from my past that probably are filled with coincidences that I love, but just because I didn't care for some reason.
Life has one or two coincidences.
Absolutely.
Every now and then. So it's okay.
Yeah.
But I was saying this movie has 3 big ones in my opinion.
Yeah.
But
and I don't mind them.
Usually,
and I don't count like bad luck as coincidence. I don't know if there's a word for this, guys.
But
like the stuff breaking down, like the fact that the train breaks down and they have all this bad luck. That's not coincidence.
Usually the rule is, and we've probably said this before. Yeah. Well, if bad luck happening, that's a problem is okay. Bad luck happening, that's a help is bad.
Yeah.
So good luck.
Right.
Coincidences to get you into trouble is okay.
Yeah.
Coincidences to get you out of trouble, like Del, is cheating.
Okay. So
like
the fact
Del
that
showing up with
Del
the cab
showing up is potentially
cheat.
bad for Neil.
Right.
So it's okay.
That's right.
Like he doesn't want to see Del.
That's a good call.
That's great because he already said to Neil.
Actually, he wants to get away from him.
No, he said to Neil, we're terrible together. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
And then,
he shows
the
up
universe
again.
finds a way to put them back together.
Here's the bad example. It's like,
that's great. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're on a quest to find something. We don't know where it is. Oh, look, it's over there.
Yeah, exactly.
So like a Harry Potter movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I once I read a script and they were looking for they're basically the teenager ran away. And the parents were driving down the road, and they drove past a liquor store, and the teenager was just like in the parking lot at the liquor store, and they found them. Like they just happened to drive.
Was that the last
page? No, so I feel so bad laughing. I'm such a dick.
I hope they don't listen to this episode.
But it's like. I run into that stuff all the time.
Yeah, no, it happens. It happens.
And so yeah, but we started to talk about
the writing of
the road trip stuff.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
So I love road trips movies. I've written road trip movies. It's like one of my favorites. And I use
for comedy. It's like bread
great.
and butter comedy genre.
Great.
Yeah.
I use the Oregon Train model or Oregon Trail model. I think about it like the Oregon Trail. I actually would love to fucking write an Oregon Trail movie, like a modern, like a bunch of hipsters got to go to Portland.
Or like Jack Black and Ben Stiller have to, or something like that.
In a shitty RV,
right,
and make their way across.
Well, they did make RV.
Yeah, exactly. So like you think about, okay, what are the hallmarks of like Oregon Trail? Well, first of all, before we get into that, like your standard situation is you have like built-in internal antagonism where characters are constantly in conflict with each other because they're stuck together for long periods of time in cramped spaces, whether that be a car or a plane
Monster
or
in
a
the house.
train. Right, monster in the house.
Monster in the house.
So that's that. Like, there's built-in conflict just from that.
Right.
Getting lost. Right, and in this movie, they don't have a map. They drive off course. They get driven off course by a cab driver. They drive down the wrong direction on the highway.
Right.
This delivers so much on all of these. Method of transportation difficulties. So, I mean, that's the whole fucking movie.
That's the title of the movie. Right,
Lack of resources. So they have no money. Then they have no credit cards. Then they have no communication. Lack of time, so we have the built-in ticking clock from the moment it starts, so time urgency. Primal stakes always, and with this one it's we got to get home to your family. Primal reward, same thing, got to get home to the family. Mini goals on the map, we got to go here, and we got to go here, and we got to go here, and this is like a perfect example of that. Your quirky road characters, which this has so many, like the doobie cab driver and the motel manager and the dip spitter.
By the way, this is what I want from those Save the Cat genre books.
What'd you say?
This is what I want from those Save the Cat
this is what they
books.
need. This is why. Yeah, exactly. They need to break it down. We'll do it, Jamie.
Exactly.
The perky car rental employee, like the best scene in the whole movie.
Right.
But you also have your character waiting at home. And that could either be at the original home or at the destination. It's funny. Like,
Not all road trip movies have that, though.
That's
Sometimes
true.
the vacation comes to mind. Sometimes the destination is just a destination.
Cut the Wally world a few times, and he's like worried.
Where are they?
Where's Wally? That's a good call.
That out.
Right.
That was the
and then like my favorite one is the premise delivering set pieces. Right. So you have your your mini adventures on the road.
I don't know if you said it, and if you did, I'll repeat it. But I think escalation is the big part.
Yeah, I didn't say that.
Each one gets more and more tense. I think that's one of the keys.
That's a really good call. They are each more ridiculous.
Well, in this movie, Neil's suffering kind of gets more intense throughout the movie.
Yeah.
The more he loses, and you know what? The more he loses, also the more he changes.
Right. He grows.
But it's
he does. No, he grows the whole time.
We watch it. Yeah.
It's like if you tracked his journey, it starts out him sleeping in a bed with John Candy, but it ends up them driving in a burnt up car with no windows.
Right.
Where Neil is humbled at that point.
Yeah. So if you just got to keep topping yourself in tension and conflict and difficulty.
That's the main strength of this. It's a good call. It's funny how I don't think a lot of John Hughes stuff is plot based, but this is very plot based. This is a very plot driven movie. A lot of his stuff is character driven. It's just like four people sitting in a room, the Breakfast Club,
talking in a neighborhood,
or even Ferris Bueller, which kind of has a road trippy
feel.
It does.
It doesn't really have a big goal at the end of the day or anything like that. It's just to enjoy the pieces.
Well, he also did write Vacation, though. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
Which there's two classic road movies he has written. So, and Vacation does the same thing. It builds.
Yeah,
it builds to
the
a climax.
escalation of, like you said, they top each other. One sequence tops each other after another. That was a good call.
Where you get to a point where like literally the main character has a gun. So there's a full escalation. Yeah.
I think I was mentioning about the buddy comedy that we kind of answered that, but I think that last part I'm curious about. What do you think is the third act here? Because I find this third act, I have my own idea, but I think the third act's really short.
Well, as we said, it's probably an editing thing.
Yeah.
But if we're talking just about what we have on screen, yeah, it is.
It's like a 5-6 minute third act.
Do you think the end of Act 2, like climax is them like hanging out together in the hotel, or do you think it happens before then? To me, that's like what you're hoping happens.
The suffering, when they're hanging out in the hotel,
it's so
I feel
cool.
like
It's like it's like the most quiet climax. Like it's just like two guys
but it
enjoying
works.
each other's company.
Everything after that, you don't feel Neil suffering anymore. Neil's suffering is over once he accepts Del, and that I would say is when the third act actually begins.
Yeah, and what's interesting here,
right?
Good.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
What's interesting here too is so if you read that script, the 165-page script, the ending that they actually shot, we think, goes on for a long time. There's a dinner, there's a Thanksgiving dinner, he meets the family, there might even be aunts and uncles. There's all kinds of stuff.
It's like an epilogue.
It's this huge epilogue. I'm sure some people went to see the premiere of this movie and were like, what happened to my part?
right.
Was it a John Candy movie?
Yeah.
My family's here.
Right.
Because it goes on for a long, it's like a 25-page third act. And one thing, I teach a class to students about short films that I always tell them. I said, once the tension ends, get out as soon as possible. Because the movie's just going to get boring. I mean, look at Lord of the Rings.
I was going to say Return of the King.
Yeah.
That was more from the source material.
We get it. And we get it. And we've been with those characters for, 100 hours.
Right.
So
just do what you're going to do and we'll just stick with it.
Yeah. It feels
that's not
feels
exactly
like
an equivalent example.
No. By ratio, it's okay. But still, it is what it is.
I like the Return of the King ending, actually.
Me too. Me too. No, I was totally down with it.
You spend 4 hours in that movie, go ahead. I don't want to say bye. But
like with short films, I'm always like, don't keep tacking on more. Like, we don't need to know everything that happens after the tension ends.
We don't need a sequel in the movie.
Absolutely not. Just get out. And I think that's what this movie kind of does. It gives you that heartfelt sequence, and it just gets to the end, and then it ends, and it leaves. It gets out really quick. It doesn't outstay its welcome at all, which I think the script kind of might have. I'd have to read the whole script.
I think the reason
but the draft that he wrote in the editing room, he realized that.
Yeah. Well,
right.
The draft he wrote in the editing room. Well put.
The part where John Candy bites the family. As a vampire.
Right. Look, if they were going with that route, give me that ending.
Where he suddenly shows his fangs for the first time and massacres the family at Thanksgiving.
God, it would have been the greatest Thanksgiving horror movie.
I think people would hate the movie, honestly, but it'd be amazing.
And they just save it for the end.
Right. I mean, I want to see John Candy as a vampire.
As a vampire.
He's like, I have you and your family now. He eats them.
Then he really becomes the monster in the house.
I can't remember if it was the if it's the commentary or what, but I know I've heard them say that they made the ending pretty much all in the editing, which they do a great job because I don't think many people know that.
Yeah. It feels like it was.
It feels like it was meant to be and everything, but it is short. And once the movie ends, it's over. And I think I don't think I want, as somebody who's a huge fan of this movie, I don't really want to know what happens after that freeze frame.
No, it's plenty.
Yeah, I don't ever want to know what happened to Del. Like, to me, they were great friends. He got him a job, and he moved in next door. And that's it. In my head, it's way better than I ever...
If it was made today, there would be 3 sequels with Mark Wahlberg.
The PTA universe. Right. Right. If Due Date was a hit, I'm sure we would have seen Zach Galifianakis go, Due Date 2, right?
Can't just leave it alone.
Yeah, I wouldn't want any more.
No, and if you do want more, again, go Google it. You can find that script online.
I feel if you want, we're pointing to John Hughes. If you want a movie that goes into that a little more, watch Dutch. They get to the house.
Good point.
Yeah.
It settles the through line with his father. There is they get to dinner, and then there's the end cap joke of the shooting him with a BB gun. So there is it gets there, but they get to the goal, and then there's a little more.
Right.
Yeah, but that doesn't feel like too much.
No,
either.
I don't think so. Either.
I don't think it overstays. It doesn't overstay its welcome.
Yeah.
I always forget that's him.
Yeah. But this is definitely a weird third act, Jamie.
Yeah, it is. It's unusual, and
it's
it works.
Fast and it works.
The drinking scene, though, is definitely where the movie starts to end.
Yeah, that's the they're together. Yay. I just love that. I love that the climax of this movie is 2 guys hanging out, like enjoying each other's company.
But what's more delightful than that scene?
No, I know. It's great.
It's a delightful scene, right?
Why do I feel like I'm at camp and he just comes out of the bathroom laughing?
It almost seems like it's unscripted.
Yeah.
It seems like 2 people we know who are real life friends. Yeah. So I guess that what we're saying, Jamie, is this is not a 5-point finale, right?
I think it's a 1-point finale.
No, I think so too.
I didn't break it down. I could have. It's funny. I quickly looked a couple nights ago in Blake Snyder's book to see how he broke the ending down, and now I don't remember what I saw, but I remember it was really short, and I was like, he's not doing. Blake a lot of times would do stuff to kind of justify his theory, I mean, because he was writing a book on it.
Thesis.
He didn't try to do that here. He broke it down the way I probably would have broken it down.
But he also didn't. He hadn't been preaching the 5-point finale when that book came out.
He had not. So the 5-point finale.
That book does not include any 5-point finales.
There
is a Hightower surprise with the cop pulling them over.
Yeah.
Which once again I
watched the stuff too. Yeah.
Yeah, where Michael McKean says that
there was a whole fight.
Yeah,
and I had never noticed the black eye before.
Never noticed that. Yeah, the Michael McKean scene was apparently like 10 minutes long.
Wow.
Yeah, the next scene, John Candy has a black eye, and I never noticed it before.
Yeah.
It's like he just has this random black eye for the rest of the movie.
They cut out so much.
And you never thought about it. They must have done something else crazy.
But it makes sense because I was like, why did they put Michael McKean in a scene where he doesn't do anything funny?
Yeah.
Why would you have that name?
Yeah.
And then don't do anything. But it's because they cut it all out.
They cut some big long fight sequence with the cop. Yeah.
If I had one last question about this movie that I've always asked since even when I was a kid, and I don't know if you guys would be interested in this, but it's actually Dell's motivations. Like I guess as a kid, and I guess if I were to write this movie, I don't know if I would try to add in a reason Dell was physically traveling. That's always bothered me a little because like he's homeless. What is he doing? Like he's like, you know what I mean? Because when we think the cliche of a homeless person is not somebody who's literally paying money to get on these forms of transportation to do things. And I was like, I mean, I guess he's just looking for friends.
Yeah.
But as a kid, even I was like, why is he doing any of this?
He is a salesman, so I guess
that's how he's living. Is I guess selling.
I kind of assume
shower curtain rings
for whatever his next salesman thing. He is traveling. There's a part of me that does wonder.
Did you wonder that? Did you guys ever wonder that?
More when I rewatch.
Okay.
Because now
I wonder if he's really a salesman or if he just has a bunch of shower curtain rings
that he's stolen from all the hotels.
That he just has like in bulk and then he just sells them.
Which would explain a lot of the coincidences with Steve Martin. He could just be trying to, because that's almost what I get from him in the rewatch is he's really just trying to help Steve Martin to get out.
Yes, I think so too. He's like latching onto a person who needs help.
It's almost like saying that if he didn't show up, Steve Martin would have experienced a lot of the same stuff.
Yep.
Right.
And he was like this angel on his shoulder.
And not learn. Yeah.
Yeah, he was like this angel just from
lesson.
Yeah.
This is a great segue into our character talk. You want to talk about the characters?
Go for it.
So what I love about these characters is they actually have a huge thing in common, and that is that they travel all the time for their occupation. And it's like, this movie is about travel. And the first time I saw it, I didn't think about that, but like, trying to learn from this, like, wow, they do have a common bond. And that is really like what keeps them together, like they're traveling. But we've talked about in the past when you're constructing your characters, and some people like to come up with a theme after they've written it. But if you've come up with a theme beforehand, you can use the characters to express the opposing themes. And so like the theme in this movie is pretty simple. It's like I don't even think I wrote it down, but it's like he says, like your work, love your wife.
Yeah.
So that's like, and then it's about like learning to value your family and your home. And
which Dell does more than
Dell
anything,
is a guy
he doesn't have the thing Neil has and doesn't appreciate.
Right.
And it's perfectly illustrated like when he's meeting all the strangers, like he knows their names, he knows their stories, he like values friendship and like loyalty, these things that like Steve Martin seems to not give a shit about, you know what I mean? Or it seems a hassle. Like family seems like work.
Dell appreciates people.
Yeah.
He does throughout the whole movie. And he's loved. And he's not alone in this world, really. He's got friends.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of there's also like that hint of empathy there too,
Right.
Just like you say, he appreciates people. Steve Martin doesn't appreciate people. Maybe he's too focused on work.
Right.
But as time goes on, he even appreciates Dell.
Yeah. So. Yeah, he ends up relying on Dell. Yeah.
No, he admits, you got me home.
You got me home.
You did it. Yeah.
And I thought I'd bring up, since we've been doing some comedies recently.
I'm happy about it. I like talking
about
comedies.
And the Robert McKee blind comic, dude. We're talking about Blake Snyder, Robert McKee, whatever.
Log lines, everything, man.
The blind comic obsessions work in this movie too. They work really well.
Give us a little refresh on that.
So Robert McKee in his I took his comedy seminar. He says that the key to comedies is having each of your characters have blind comic obsessions that are the basis for all the comedy created in the story. Mm-hmm. And since we've been talking about that, we've been going through all the comedies that we've covered, and they all have them. Mm-hmm. And in this movie, they're pretty simple and easy to find. In that, for Neil, he's self-important, and like a lot of the comedy is based around like his obsession with like nobody else matters but me. He's non-confrontational, so like there's tons of situations that are funny because he's just like refusing to say something, and then when he does become confrontational, it's just as funny, so it's all based around that confrontational issue. And then my favorite one is that he's a germaphobe. Mm-hmm. Like there's just so many scenes where he's grossed out, and like the comedy is based around him being grossed out.
It's also I don't know if this goes with that, but like Neil's a little bit of a classist.
Yes,
he's a little bit upper class, whereas Del isn't. He's a working man's man.
I think that absolutely
right.
He's obsessed with the idea that he's better than others. 100%. Yes, yeah, and that's clear from the very first scene. Yeah,
and by the end of the movie, he's accepted that. That's probably something else that changed within him.
Yeah, definitely.
He's wearing garbage clothes and a garbage car.
He's wearing garbage clothes. That's a good point.
Yeah.
And then Del he says it, so it's like he's blind to it. He even says it. The last thing I want to be remembered as is a blabbermouth, and that is like he just talks too much, and it's like so much of the comedy comes out of that.
Right.
So it's instructive in that manner too,
because he has no one to talk to.
Yes. Oh my god.
It's a good breakdown.
Yeah,
I like it.
It's a good movie for like so many examples of writing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it really is. It's like just straight up, like you could just point to it so many times.
Yeah, I'm the dork who goes, okay, let's break this down.
Let's break it down. But people have, though. That's why I was saying in the middle of this episode, like it's in a lot of books. I've seen it mentioned a million times. Mm-hmm. Roger Ebert put it in his books next to other huge movies that you'd never think would be in the same level. So. Yeah.
The great movies.
What have we learned from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles?
One thing I've always appreciated about Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is the simplicity in concept. And sometimes the most simple concepts are the ones that pop the most. If you strip away lots of complication and things like that in your concepts. I mean, this is just about a guy trying to get home on Thanksgiving, but very relatable, had never been done. But is interesting. So I don't know. I think concept,
beauty and simplicity.
Beauty and simplicity, absolutely.
It's a universal theme.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, you could make it any holiday.
True.
Yeah.
Jimmy? I've learned. I did not know that this was originally a 4.5-hour movie, and so I've learned that. Once again, proving that if your script is like too long, there's always room to cut.
The writing never ends.
Yeah, the writing never stops until the movie is edited.
And editing is writing.
Editing is writing, absolutely. Yeah.
165 pages.
Oh my god.
Go Google it. Google it. Check out that ending.
Yeah.
See the vampire. No, the vampire's not in it.
That would take me about 17 hours to do notes on.
I was gonna my learned thing. I was just gonna say about the editing. Because
I'm sorry, I took it.
No, you didn't. Because as somebody who works as an editor and does all that stuff, it's a movie that I never would have thought was 4 hours. And, because you hear about that, it sounds like a disaster. And it's just a movie I've loved so much throughout my life, and I've never noticed a problem.
Right.
So the fact that it can be cut down story-wise and visually to that is amazing.
I mean, think of all like the bad superhero movies, and everybody's like, oh, if they would have just put those other scenes in, it could have been good.
No.
No.
More doesn't fix.
More doesn't fix.
It's usually less that fixes everything.
Yeah, true.
I think maybe I'll take that. That's my takeaway. Less is more.
Yeah.
Which, Thanksgiving miracle.
Appreciate what you have, like these two guys.
Yeah, there's also kind of a gluttony lesson in there. Less is more, everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
Bob, is this going to be released the Thanksgiving week?
This is going to be released, right before Thanksgiving.
Well, happy Thanksgiving to everybody listening.
Everyone listening. I'm hoping that people listen because it's before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
But
And remember, less is more.
less is more. Go easy on the carbs.
Put down that second slice of pumpkin pie.
Enjoy your nap.
Yeah. I'm getting hungry. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.
You have just listened to Writers Blockbusters, a screenwriting podcast featuring two professionals and another guy. Available only on Thunder Grunt.